Hello everyone. Today we'll learn how to use in-text citation as per APA style in your academic paper. So let's know what is in-text citation. In-text citation is a concise way to identify the source of certain information. The format or the structure of in-text citation is you have to write down the author's last name first, then put a comma. It's very essential to put the comma here, then the publication year, then again a comma, then lastly you mention the page number, then that's it. And you have to write this structure within the first bracket. Okay, so you can see already, you can see the examples on your screen here. Other locators, let's read out the structure. The full structure consists of the author's last name, then the publication year, and the page number or other locators. Here other locators is important to know. The other locators rather than page number are can be time frame and paragraph number, even heading. So you can see the examples on your screen. First one, let's say that the author's full name is Stephen Smith. So Smith is the last name. Okay, so Smith comes first, then put a comma, then the publication year is 2021, then put a comma again, then the page number is mentioned. In the second example, you see the structure same and there is a timestamp. Then in the third example you see the paragraph number, and in the last example you see there's a conclusion or a heading, as I mentioned before. One thing to remember that you don't need to put the page number in the in-text citation if you're referring the source as a whole. Okay, don't need to write down the page number. Just write down the author's last name, then put a comma, and then the publication year, bracket close. That's it. Okay, let's move forward. There are two ways to integrate the in-text citation. First one is narrative. Now when you give the narrative citation, you have to write down the citation, the you have to give the citation just after the author's name. Here you see in the first example, as Smith, the author's name is given, then exactly right after the author's name the quotation is given, the publication year 2014 has shown. So in the second example, you see it can be at the end of the sentence, just before the period or the full stop. Okay, now Smith states that plagiarism is becoming increasingly widespread. So here you see the publication year, then a comma, then the page number, and then that's called narrative in-text citation. Now the kind of citation is parenthetical citation. In this kind of citation, what we do is that you have to write down the author's last name, then the publication year, and the page number. Just the last examples I showed you, those are called parenthetical. Let's move backward to that, those examples. You see here all these examples, those are parenthetical because you have like we have included the author's name, then the publication year, and also the locators. Okay, now in narrative in-text citation, you don't have to give the author's name. Just give the publication years and the locators. Here the locators. Now in parenthetical, you have to write down the author's last name, then put a comma, then the publication year, and then the locators, then bracket close, just before the period. Okay, so this is narrative and parenthetical in-text citation for you. Now if you are given a lot of authors, one to multiple authors, so how are you gonna give these authors name as you're gonna use those names as your in-text citation in your paper? So let's see one by one. Suppose you have one author. Okay, then while citing while citing, you have to write down the author's last name, then put a comma, then the publication year. Okay, when you're going to refer it for the first time in the paper. And you can also use the locators. Okay, doesn't matter, that's not an issue here. Just author's name and the publication year. Now subsequent means that if you are going to use same citation again for multiple times in the same paper, you're gonna do the same thing, that exactly what you wrote for the first time. author's last name, and then put a comma, the publication year. If you want to give the locators, then it's okay. Now if you have two authors, now while citing, you have to write down each author's last name. Now here is both authors names are Smith and Joy. Now you have to use the ampersand in between these two authors, Smith and you cannot spell it, okay? You cannot write A and D, it will be a wrong format. You have to use this and, just you see on your screen. So separate them with this ampersand, then put a comma. It's very essential that you put a comma here. Then the publication year. When you're going to use this same citation again in your paper, so you write down the same thing, okay? No changes. Now you have 3 to 5 authors. Okay, when you have 3 to 5 authors, write down each author's last name and put this ampersand just before the last author. Okay, it's very important. Just don't put comma and write every author's name. You have to use this ampersand just before the last author's name, then put a comma, then the publication year. Now this time when you're going to refer this same citation again in the paper, you don't need to write down each author's name again and again. Just just write down the first author's name, which is Smith here, and then write et al. Et al here means that and others. So Smith et al means Smith and all others. So here all others means Joey, Lee, Cox, all of them. Now then put a period, okay, after et al put a dot here. Okay, it's very important. Just if you don't put the dot, then it will be a wrong format, considered as a wrong format. Okay, now then put a comma, and then the publication year. Okay, when you'll be having 6+ authors in your citation, from the very beginning of your citation, just write down the first author's name, then title, then the publication year. Okay, and in the following citations, I mean, if you are going to cite this same citation multiple times, if you're going to use this, just write down as it you wrote it for the first time. Just write down the author's last name, then title, then the publication year. Okay, so it's very important to understand. And one thing is important. Just if in your academic paper, if you have 3+ authors, like three authors plus, then you can write down from the very beginning. You can write down the first author's name and then title. Okay, it's okay. It will be okay. So it will not be considered as wrong format if you don't write all of the author's name. If the authors are from 3 to 5, you can write down, it's your wish. But if you want, you can write down each author's name when the author's limitation is 3 to 5. Each author's name, just put the percent, then the publication year. Is very important, okay, to know that. Now if you have 2 or more reference the same time, okay, so what you're gonna do, and you have multiple authors, this is going to be a tricky one. Now see, when you have, suppose you have 6+ authors or 3+ authors, what you're gonna do, you're gonna write down first author's last name, then title, then the same format as I showed before, then the publication year. Now the semicolon is in red mark, is very important. You have 2 or more references. Okay, now you have to separate them with this semicolon. Then again, the other citations, author's first name, like in the other citation, like in you have 2 more authors in a different citation, and you have combined them together. So you separate it with this semicolon. Then each author's last name, use this ampersand, then put a comma, then the publication year, then again a semicolon if you have more references to include. Okay, if you don't need to include any more references, just close the bracket here. If you have more references to include, then put this comma, semicolon, sorry, not commas, is semicolon, I guess. Yeah, then they write down the same order, and in the same order. If you have two authors, write down each author's last name, separate them with the same percent. If you have 3 to 5, then you can write down each author's name and put the percent just before the last author's name. Or you can from the starting, you can write down the first author's last name and then at all, and then put a comma, dot, a comma, and then the publication year, bracket closes, up to you. So it's all about these in-text citation. I hope that you got what I really taught you, and if you have any confusion, you can comment in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you.